everybody. You are listening to I'm Over It. My name is Atlanta DeCadenet Taylor, and this is my podcast.
So I am here with Bethany C. Meyers, who is the founder and CEO of the be.come project. We are doing a little Zoom podcast recording. And that means that, well, I put on a little makeup actually for like the second time this whole quarantine. And I feel like you look nice.
I put on makeup too, and I have one piece of jewelry up here. And I was like, I'm going to wear a necklace.
No, I put earrings on.
Don't worry, I still have sweatpants on below, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what has have you been getting dressed, or like what's your getting dressed versus sweats ratio?
Right. Well, I mean, because my work is in fitness, I tend to have a lot of like good athleisure, cozy, like cotton underwear, high-waisted, like I tend to wear a lot of that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And then my other set of wardrobe is like super, super dressy event going out. But when quarantine started, I actually went on and just like bought a bunch of different sweatpants, like ASOS $20, some things to wear.
Yeah.
So I've still been doing like a getting ready process in the morning, showering, washing my face, curling my eyelashes, brushing my eyebrows, and then putting on cute sweats.
Right. No, I've been doing the same. I've every day been showering, washing my face. Like those are the two things that I have to maintain. If I stop showering, then like my self-esteem is just down the drain, like immediately. At least this way I can sort of like keep it a little, higher. So I'm like, let's get to the good stuff. Okay, so well, I think, can you sort of explain the difference between the be.come project and like a normal kind of fitness routine, and your concept behind why you started it and what is different about it? Because I mean, I noticed it, and that's something that I think is super cool, but obviously coming from you, I think would be great.
Yeah. I think, I mean, with the be.come project, my mission essentially is to make people think differently about their approach to movement and why they are working out and what is the actual benefit and how it can serve their body. And I have been in fitness for a really long time. I had a pretty severe eating disorder during most of that time, which I'm really open about. And I think way more people do than we even realize, and so for me, I saw how damaging fitness could be in general, and how the messages that are perpetuated in the fitness industry and in the wellness industry and in the diet industry, it's an industry. And really what happens in those industries is people are trying to make money off of our insecurities, right? Like fitness has always been sold by being like, you need to get trim, lose weight, prepare for your wedding, prepare for bikini body, prepare for, your boyfriend, whatever. And it's always been about like, you are not good enough, and this is the thing that's going to make you really good. And this, this approach, like, I mean, you talk about this all the time. Like, this approach exists in so many areas of our life, and fitness is just one of those places that I feel like I can actually do something about. And so, as I was like really working to heal myself and to have a different relationship with food, it became very apparent to me that my relationship with workouts were not good. And anytime I was going to do a workout, it was like, I have to do this because I ate too much over the weekend. I have to do this because I have a photo shoot tomorrow, right? It was like this, I have to do this because something bad and I'm not good enough, so now I have to go fix it. And I just remember, like, I so distinctly remember having like really, I'm going to describe them as like red, burning, dark, very like hate fueled thoughts about my body when I was working out. And that was like my motivation, like I'm going to stay in this because it's hard and I'm going to, I'm going to do this to my butt or whatever it may be. And it was just like, it's just terrible. And so anyway, what I started doing is I started kind of changing the approach to all of my movement. And I kind of made this pact with myself that was like, I'm never going to go do a workout. I'm not allowed to go do a workout unless I can find a motivation for it that has nothing to do with my body. And so over time, I started really finding that I was retraining my brain, right? The thoughts that you constantly put in, or the wiring of your brain, to be like, oh, now I want to go work out because I need some me time. Or like, it would feel really, really good to sweat. Or I have a huge meeting tomorrow and I want to feel really strong for it, And I was absolutely floored at how much that shift in thought and thinking really did something amazing for me. It was so healing. And then movement was like, oh, this makes me feel good. Like for me now, I think also getting, starting to get older, it's like, this is what's going to protect me, what feels right for my body, what feels good, not necessarily what feels painful, like what's still hard and challenging. And it just became such a different thing. And I was like, people need to know about this, people need to do this. That's where the idea for the Become Project was born, which is an online subscription service. That sounds it's an online subscription service.
Yeah. And it's an app, and it's
an app. And you can go into a website, you can do routines, and it's a community, and it's an approach to movement that is centered around how you feel. So, I think some of the things that we do that are really different is, number one, our messaging. There's no talk about weight loss. There's no before and after pictures. There's no, rapid skinny promises, no 12-week programs, none of that bullshit. We use actual clients in all of our website and our promotions. So there's a lot of different bodies represented. And I think representation is so important to change. In order for us to see change. And then we also have, so basically every single week I put out a 25-minute video, kind of yoga meets Pilates, all done to music. The idea is that you do it all week long and you get better at it. And the reason this was so important to me, as opposed to having like this huge library of videos that you're scrolling through and trying to find your workout, is I wanted people to like have a routine that they go and they do, and then they continue to do, and they watch themselves get better at it within a week's worth of time. Because there's like, progress is how humans thrive. We love seeing progress. But we've always been taught to measure our progress by the way that we look or what it says on the scale. And this is like all about, measuring your movement.
Yeah.
And lots of other things, but,
Yeah, but it's super inspiring, because I also have had many eating disorders in different shapes and different things, and I started modeling when I was 15, and it was pre the time of body positivity and the representation that's happening now, where it was, you had to be a certain size, and that size was very small. And unless you had that, you're getting sent home from sets and like all of that. And when I listened to your TED Talk, one of the things that you spoke about was stopping working out. So that was really interesting, because right now, I'm in a phase now with that. But I've had that at many different points in my life, where I've never really exercised for like mental health, or for what you're saying, just like, hey, I'm going to have some me time or anything. It was always that same, like, I'm driven by, I have a shoot, or I ate a certain amount of food that I'm uncomfortable with the night before, and I hate working out. And it's really gotten to the point where I have a really negative, I don't have a great, like for me, working out's a total pain in the ass, and I hate it.
Right.
because it's always had such a negative connotation to, and because I spent so many years of my life being on extreme diets and training 5 times a week and, hurting myself and being like, I needed to lose. I remember being like really uncomfortable with my weight. I, had been dealing with some like medication changes. So I gained 40 pounds. And I remember being like, I'm going to try Barry's boot camp because that's the answer. And I fully like sprained my ankle and I kept going because I also felt like you don't deserve to stop this. Keep going no matter what, and I don't know how to change this. And my wiring is still so fucked, and what you're saying about changing that. And I wonder, like, when did that process start for you? Like, how long has it taken you? Because I'm definitely like, I hope one day to be able to have a positive, experience when I'm exercising and it not being this like punishment thing.
Right. Well, and I think, like what you're saying is, it was so important for me to create the Become Project because what people have a really hard time finding right now is actually finding movement or finding workouts whose message aligns with what you're trying to achieve, and not hating this workout. And I think that's a big problem. I mean, I don't want to call it very specifically because I know like tons of instructors there, and I think there are like good and bad things about everywhere. But like if your instructor is there being like, hold it longer and you got to burn these calories and da 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 da, and they're saying those things while you're moving and that's what's going in your brain, like we'll never get there, And so I think like the language that I always try to use at the Become Project is so honoring of the body while still being tough and challenging and motivating, right? Because I think you have to have a good balance of both. It's certainly not a workout that's like, and just like chill out and like
Yeah.
but I think that you have to find ways to like mirror that within your own movement practice. And as far as like how long it took me, I always try to be really clear and honest about the fact that it's not done yet. Like I don't think it's ever done. I certainly haven't achieved it. I've become much more aware of it, so it's better. But there's still ups and downs. And, I think like this process really started for me about 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And of course, like creating the Become Project and talking about it often has helped. But it's interesting. I'm working on an Instagram post about this right now. So I taught on this machine for a long time in like boutique studios. So like Barry's is a boutique studio, right?
Yeah.
And it was this machine that's like based off of Pilates Reformer. And it's like Pilates on crack. Okay. It's like super hard. It's like group workout. It's like Soul Cycle Pilates. Okay. And it's like very results driven and very about being hard and all this stuff. And I was like an expert on this machine. I mean, I trained everyone. I like made up all the moves. I, did a lot. And so then I started Become and I left that machine. And that was all during part of this like eating disorder healing process. Right. Well, the studio had machines up for sale and I wanted to get one. I like missed it. I spent so much time on it and I was like, oh, I love this thing. So I got one up here. It came at the beginning of quarantine and I got on it ready to work out. And it was one of those moments where I was like, whoa, this machine holds a lot for me. I mean, I taught on it for 10 years. I found myself like going into moves and my instant like thought pattern was like, grr, harder, my butt, gotta firm it up. This is for my abs. And it was a really interesting experience to be able to like acknowledge that that's how I used to feel with that machine and then be like, okay, what feels good now? How am I going to reframe it? What am I going to do different this time? How do I kind of break out of those molds? So, yeah.
Yeah, I find that I remember even as like a kind of joke, I had posted some workout videos like a while ago. I'm not that person. And again, like I associate the like online fitness with just yoga poses, you know, on your partner's head and not shaking and like taking it very seriously. And me, like I have to have fun doing something. Otherwise, like I don't want to do it either. And that's how I like, you know, I like to goof around. I always dance when I'm working out. And you know, I posted them and it was just like complaining and, you know, doing my exercises, but fucking around. And people really responded to it. And in a way that I was actually like, a lot of people are like, you got to do this and stick with it. It wasn't my thing, but like, it was interesting to see how there is a real need for what's a real way to like exercise and have fun. And like, you know, there's so much in the internet world of perfection and what that looks like. And, you know, diet culture and all of that. And it's super refreshing. When I first heard about your project, I was like, oh, this is really great because it is just different and real. And you know, has it been harder? Have you noticed that there's more people who are interested in it now during quarantine? Have you like, is it affecting you? Like, are you having a hard time doing it now? Or what's your relationship been with exercise in this period of time?
Yeah, I mean, God, it's been all over the place. We've certainly had an influx of people, which has been being the fact that we're investor free, small business. I started this from money that I borrowed from my mom. Like, you know, it was very, very grassroots. And so we've definitely had an influx of people. And it's also been really interesting to like, you know, right now, I mean, the quarantine diet memes and I'm getting fat over quarantine and the quarantine 15. And it's like, those type of messages are really tough for, like, I hate those memes, you know. Our bodies are allowed to fluctuate and we're like experiencing global trauma right now. And like, it only makes sense to me that a ton of people would want to be holding on to more weight because sometimes I think of weight as being like a cushion or like something soft or like a pillow, you know, like sometimes you need it. I with movement for myself, yeah, I have been enjoying moving during quarantine. I think the beginning was really tough. Like I basically have to make up a new routine every 2 weeks. So the first few weeks I was like, I have no creative juice to be able to do this. Like, I don't even know. It was just like so drained, so dead. But I've started to become re-inspired, I think, and it's been very helpful for me to carve out movement time, like just for myself, and then movement time that's for the company, and finding ways that it feels good and just honoring every single piece of this quarantine. Like, I actually have found, as far as eating goes, that I've wanted to kind of backtrack into restrictive eating styles, or actually not eating as much. I think like anxiety makes my stomach tighter, and like the first month I felt really nauseous. And so the only thing that like sounded appealing at all was childhood foods, Cinnamon Toast Crunch and like cinnamon roll biscuits. And that's actually like what's really, really helped me, you know, as I've been eating those things. And like, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Is it affecting, aside from the Become project, are you struggling with sort of having those thoughts coming back? Because I know for me, I still get like very triggered by food. And as much as I try, I've gotten a lot better. And I definitely, like maybe 2 years ago or something, got to the point of stopping restricting, allowing myself to have what I wanted at the time. You know, I'd spent my whole life I swear I didn't eat pasta for 4 or 5 years. Literally, it was like, that's a no, you know. It made life challenging and annoying, and like I fucking love pasta, right? For some reason, that's a trigger food for me. I don't know what it is, but that's like one of the things. Like I would be fine to eat French fries and this and that, but pasta for some reason always fucked with me. And I've found that I'm definitely still triggered by it. It's like this thing of what I want versus what I think I should have. That's
Mm-hmm.
always been like a thing. And so I'm wondering, are you struggling with that now? Like your own personal stuff with the food choices and, all that?
Yeah, I most definitely. It's like you can read my mind. Um, I so I'll give like a very specific example. These cinnamon rolls, like the Pillsbury cinnamon rolls in the can. My mom used to make those on Sunday morning. And I didn't grow up with very much money. Having fresh foods wasn't something that was really available to me young.
Mhm.
Those were like really a treat. I was like really fancy and it was really good. And I've been like craving them. So like made them and then I'm like reading the label and it's like made partially with genetically modified, like GMOs. And yeah, I mean, so many different terrified feelings started coming up in me. And what I try to remind myself of, and like what I think this journey has really taught me, is that when I restrict something and when I'm like, this is so bad for me as I'm eating it, I tend to revert in the opposite way where then it's like I'm binging it and then I need
Yeah,
everything, right? And so what I found is if I can be like, I'm allowing these cinnamon rolls. This cinnamon roll is not going to kill me, right? Like
yeah,
this is something that is nurturing myself in a different way. And then maybe I'm going to now try to like find a recipe to make cinnamon rolls the way that I would more enjoy them now that feels more natural to me,
right.
right? And like even still like using the milk or the eggs or the butter or whatever, I'm more into like using a lot of ingredients that I know, as opposed to like processed thing, right? That's still important to me, but I think it's a difference of like understanding, as weird as it may be, those cinnamon rolls offered me something that I needed
For
at
sure.
that time. And like, that's okay too. And I think that food stress can actually be more detrimental for our health than like allowing the food and being cleaner about it. And that's what we don't realize, is like these type of restrictions, these yo-yo diets, surrounding food with guilt or shame, surrounding workout with guilt or shame. Like guilt and shame does nothing for us. And it can hurt our health just as much as the other stuff can.
Yeah. And do you find your partner super supportive of this? How do they help you? And um, you know, you've been together a while, right? So have they been with you through this whole journey and knowing you before, become project, before you sort of began to rewire your brain? And I think a lot of people struggle with being able to have open conversations with their partners. And, I know that when I get triggered and I'm like a little cuckoo about my food, it's like my partner doesn't fully understand that, and it's hard. But I also know that my fiance is not my everything, and that I go other places for support for different things, right? And that's super helpful for me. I've found there are different topics that he's just not, as he doesn't get it, and that's okay. But I'm wondering, has Nico been super helpful through that process? Like, at what point did that kind of...
Yeah. Nico and I have known each other for 14 years. So, we met I was 20, they were 18. So we've seen it all, all the ups and downs and the goods and the bads. I think that I am much more immersed in the world of body neutrality, health at every size, and intuitive eating. One, because of my job, and two, because I've had to be, than Nico is. So I think they're really, really supportive. But like you said, some things they just don't get. They don't get like when they're only picking up gluten-free pasta, because pasta has been a big trigger food for me too. And so I want to like learn to eat it the way it should be.
Totally.
Which kind of says something, like there must be some like major diet culture shit that we read in like 17 magazines surrounding pasta.
Totally. Yeah. Well, the
You know?
carbs are the carbs are
Yeah.
like
Right.
you don't go near it.
So anyway, I think that, sometimes I'm like, we need to just get the regular pasta. And they're like, why? I'm like, you're not gluten free. Like there's nothing different about it. I mean, you're not celiac. Like you can have gluten. Anyway, whatever. But yeah, they are definitely supportive. And as time has gone on, and as we've just become better communicators with each other, which is so important, I think I have more words to express what something means to me or why it feels a certain way for me, or like why it's important to eat this without judgment or shame, or why it's important to remove certain words from our language. So yeah, I think that that's a growth process and something that we're like all being forced to really work on right now in quarantine, because it's just the two of us
right there with each other all the time. I know. Okay, so you just got married.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, that was 2 years ago. Oh, wow. Okay. So I am very intrigued, I'm sorry, by open relationships. I have a lot of friends who are in pseudo-open relationships. I have a lot of friends who are sex workers and their partners are understanding about it, all kinds of stuff. But obviously I have many questions. And I'm kind of curious just how, I have this idea where I'm like, if my fiance was like fucking someone else, I would be like gutted, and I am just kind of curious about that, honestly.
Yeah. This is always an interesting topic, because I think that Nico and I, in the way that our relationship operates, is probably pretty different than it's different than a lot of other polyamorous relationships that I've met.
Okay.
I think a lot of people who are poly, and I'm not speaking for everyone. Please, everyone listening, I'm not speaking for everyone. There's all different kinds of relationships, right? But I think a lot of times people are a couple and then they have a monogamous couple and they have a conversation about opening up their relationship and bringing other people in. And to be completely honest, I'm really not as versed in like how that subject works. I've had like other people that I'm monogamous with, and I don't know that I can remember times in different relationships where that would not have felt good for me. But with Nico and I, we grew up together, and there was many times just as we were getting older and becoming adults and figuring ourselves out that we let each other go, that we dated other people, that we both realized how queer we were. So, maybe Nico was sleeping with a man or I was sleeping with a woman, and it was kind of like, okay, all right. Or like, I'm going to move to New York, and Nico's like, yeah, but I still want to be able to explore this like gay side of myself. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it safe. Like, I get that. I want that too. I think like, and then at some point when we got married, previous to, we weren't particularly dating at all. We'd kind of like, we'd stopped sleeping together. We weren't really dating each other.
Okay.
So basically, like, we moved to New York. We dated kind of on and off, maybe more monogamous relationships, but we would cheat on each other and it was okay. We just didn't know how to like address polyamorous, like we didn't know really what that was, and then moved to New York. And then like, that was just a big old shit show with each other. Like, and then Nico moved away from New York. This was like 7 years ago, I guess. Nico moved 8 years ago. Nico moved away from New York, and I started dating women and like really like genuinely going out on dates, wanting to have a relationship. Whereas before I was so ashamed that it was more like drunken hookup kind of thing,
Right.
And then at that point, Nico and I just like, we were like, okay, we're just better as friends, we're best friends, and that's what we are. But it was interesting because when they moved back to New York and we were still just best friends and there wasn't a physical relationship, when either one of us had other partners, our partners still felt jealous of the relationship that I had with Nico and the relationship Nico had of me. Like, it was still there, and it was very, very confusing because we didn't really know how to like explain our love. Like, we weren't just best friends. We weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. We, we weren't straight for each other, but like we weren't complete, it was like, it was just different. And we went on a trip to Peru, and we had a really like spiritual, powerful experience between the two of us. And it was very like, we walked out of that and we were like, we're getting married. It was like no question that this is my family, this is my foundation, this is somebody that I'm supposed to like legally have a life with.
Mm-hmm.
But that also doesn't change our needs for other people. Like, I think I am better to Nico in a relationship when I have a female partner that I'm dating. Like, I just think we work better all the way around, So yeah, I think it's inherent to who we are, to making our relationship work. It's not, just me and Nico.
So if you're both dating other people, are you also together sexually with each other?
We've always gone through like different phases of how much we're sleeping with one another. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
So, because I guess I'm just curious.
Am I going to actually tell my sex life or not?
Well, I read a lot of articles that you and Nico had both spoken about your sexuality pretty openly. So I'm curious, I was just curious in general, whether if you're in an open relationship, say like the one you're describing, of course there are many different types of open relationships and what that looks like for different people. But yeah, I always wonder, I'm like, okay, well, are you sleeping together while other people? I mean, I guess everyone just has their own thing, right? And it's just between two people, and like at the end of the day, like it's just up to you two.
I mean, we've experienced both situations. We've had other partners and when we are actively sleeping together, and other partners and we aren't really actively sleeping together.
Mm-hmm.
I never feel like Nico and I's relationship is defined by sex and how much we're sleeping together. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make me feel more intimate with him or less intimate with him, or like the relationship always feels the same regardless. So there's no hard and fast rule except for the fact that we're like very, very safe,
Yeah.
and like that's super important to me. That's super important to Nico. It's like, there are no secrets. Everything's out on the table when it comes to that, like, yeah, I'm very, very particular about that.
When you first got together, did you both know that you were queer, or has it been a development over time and you both just happen to have, come out of it saying, we're queer and we're non-binary and I just connect with that? Or was it in the beginning where you were both kind of like, I feel a little queer and I feel a little queer. Cool, we're both just queer. We're going to go on this journey together.
Right. Yeah, we didn't talk about it at all at first. And I was raised really ultra conservative religious, like very, like knocking on people's doors, asking if they were going to heaven or hell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, a lot of church trauma wrapped up in my back end.
Yeah.
So I met Nico when I was 20. I was like nowhere. I had no idea I was on the queer spectrum, like zero clue. Maybe there were some things that I did know, but I wouldn't admit them. Part of the reason I think Nico is so special to me is because they were kind of the first person that was like, why don't you believe in evolution? And I was like, I don't really know. It was the first time I hadn't like felt threatened by that. And then they were the first person to make me realize I didn't have my own answers for a lot of questions. And so Nico gave me like, we had an interesting friendship. Like, they gave me a lot of books to read, and we did a lot of art together, and we talked about a lot of things, and they really opened my mind to a lot of stuff. And it was maybe like a year after meeting them, the first time that I ever recognized that I had feelings for a girl. And I was super scared by them. It was my friend on New Year's Eve, and she like kissed a guy, and I saw it happen, and I was so jealous. And I was like, what was that? And then over time, I think we just both explored in different ways. Nico definitely had a better handle on their sexuality before I did, but I think that happens often with people who are raised, in like, we were both raised in somewhat homophobic environments, but mine was more like, you're going to hell, you're a terrible sinner, this is God's punishment, so I just think it takes longer for people to get out of that.
Are your parents and your family accepting of your relationship?
My dad died when I was young. My mom and my brothers, I think, have really put in a lot of effort, and we've had a lot of rough times with this, but we have more recently had a lot of good times, and I feel like everybody has made major steps to put family as the priority. Like, I think the biggest thing that has helped me with my family, and I always want to respect them and be respectful of them and their privacy, I guess, has been important for us. But I think with family, like, what's really helped us is just to be like, okay, I may not agree with everything you think, and you may not agree with everything I think. So let's just like acknowledge that and accept it and focus on the things that we do agree on. I have 13 nieces and nephews. Like,
Wow.
I love them. I would be close to them. So it's really important to me to have a relationship with my family, no matter how hard it can be at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. It's definitely, I feel that. That's amazing that you and Nico kind of ended up in this journey together. And
It's really wild.
yeah, it really is. It's like, that's pretty crazy that you just kind of both ended up being similar in that way. And so you recently came out as non-binary, right? That's something that you've connected with more recently.
Yeah, in like the last couple years. I don't actually remember exactly when. I think I just kind of slowly was like, I'm they, them pronouns. I mean, I think it just kind of came out slowly, but it felt so right.
And like, what's been the biggest challenge with that? I read some of your articles. One, I think it was on Shape magazine, where you were talking about pronouns, and I think you had said that, I think, and I've experienced this too, that obviously I've had to practice it because it didn't come naturally to me. And sometimes I still slip up. And, I think obviously, like, if you're presenting a certain way, that can kind of like trip you up. And, but because I'm around a lot of non-binary people, have really had to practice it. And it's something really is important to me out of respect for them. But what do you had said that I think a lot of people feel stupid, with that when they're using pronouns, or that if they fuck up, they're stupid or don't understand it or whatnot. What has been like the biggest struggle with that, like kind of coming to the terms with what you're comfortable with your pronouns? And what's been the hardest thing about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you're right. I think pronoun use is just something we have to practice, and it's hard to practice. And I always equate it to learning a new language, like when you're learning Spanish and you're trying to figure out how to conjugate a verb, and you're like, oh, it's just like one thing and I can't get it. And like when you're asking someone to use they, them pronouns, it can often make them feel like they can't even speak in their native tongue. It's like, why can't I get this one sentence out? And, as you've seen, I've watched everybody on the be.come project team. So obviously they're a client, like across the board, we assume they, them pronouns. now I feel like everyone on my team like only uses they them pronouns just to describe everyone, and it's amazing to watch how like people have so quickly caught the hang of it, and now that's just like how we talk, you know, internally as a team. I feel like that's such a little micro experiment, you know.
So they them is more gender neutral?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So like if somebody were to write it and their name is Sarah and Sarah wants a discount, we're not like, hey, she wants a discount, is that okay, or something, you know, or a refund or whatever. But instead we're like, Sarah wants this. Now I can't get a pronoun in that sentence, but what do you think about giving them that? Well, you know, what do you think about doing this for them?
Yeah.
To respect the fact, like we have a huge queer community at the Become Project, you know. I mean, I think more often than not, there are non-binary people who use they them pronouns. And I always tell people like using they them pronouns in a singular sense is actually more common than like we use it often. So if you're stuck in traffic, you may say something like, hey, they just cut me off.
Totally.
Right? And like that's a they them pronoun that we're using in a singular sense. It's just when we don't know it. So it's in a lot of places, and now it's just, you know, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting, it's cool that younger people, it's more ingrained in them, like no matter what, you know, it is like a little, me even being like 28 or something, it is like exactly like relearning. And I mean, I think it's so important to like respect that, but yeah, it is, it's hard. So I guess that like some of the other things, like, you know, I would love for you to talk about just kind of quickly would be the concept of like body neutrality. Because I think there's so much, even now, I think in the quarantine situation, you know, to this concept of like making sure that you're keep going. And there's a lot of this, like, I mean, I often use the term toxic positivity, and it's like one of my most annoying things that I'm like, stop pushing me. Like, I'm a big believer in also respecting where you're at. I believe that accepting where you're at actually leads to more progress eventually. And that's been my experience, where I'll be like, you know what, I'm just feeling very bad this week, and I might fight it for like 3 days or something, and then I kind of will sit in it and accept it, and then I'll come out of it, you know. But yeah, I can't with the like toxic, the positive, the memes, like all that. I'm just like, can you not? And I think the body neutrality is a super important thing, and I know it's really important to you. And that's kind of, I just quickly would love if you could just explain that.
Yeah, I mean, body neutrality has been my saving grace, and I think toxic positivity explains it. So, like, that's such a great term. The body positivity movement did amazing things for people. It got us to places that we could not have got before. It got more plus size models out there. I think it did a lot of things, but you know, body positivity quickly became like, you got to be positive all the time about your body.
Yeah.
And it's so unrealistic. And so I think what happens is if you're like, damn it, I'm not feeling body positive today, then it feels like you failed. And it doesn't always have to be about like talking yourself up. Like the fact of the matter is some days you feel like shit about your body, and that's okay. And some days you feel really good about your body, and that's okay. But every single day you're going to respect your body, because it's the body, it's your body, and it's a home that you have to live in. I love thinking about it like body neutrality says that this body is just a container and it's just a shell, and like the real me lives inside of it.
I mean, I think this has all been so incredible and super helpful. I also was just like, I mean, what would you recommend for someone like me who hates working out and like wants to change their relationship with exercise? And because I know it's so important, especially now. I know it is, and I don't know how to get out of it.
Well, I mean, one thing I didn't get to touch on about the be.come project, which is kind of interesting that I didn't, has been more of the mental health aspect.
I was actually going to ask about that.
Yeah, because I think that has actually been one of the more surprising things. I don't know if surprising is the right word, but I didn't realize how many people would latch on that like really, really struggle with mental health, and how much the be.come project would tie to those two things. So like something we do when you do a routine is before and after you answer the question, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
And we have different emotion words there, or you can type in your own. And like, there's a little bit of it that I think can, feel a bit cheesy or something like, oh, am I happy? Am I sad? Am I whatever? But I think that the more people do it, what I've seen, it's not even I think, I know, it becomes this very, very powerful check-in of like, how did movement affect my mood? And it's not always for the better, and it's not necessarily always for the worse. So there was a client that wrote in recently, and they said, at the beginning of my workout, I wrote that I was sad. And at the end of my workout, I wrote that I was sad. But the difference is at the end of it, I felt like I was okay with the fact that I was sad. And it was less about like trying to change it and more just about like acknowledging it. Like, I'm still sad. This workout felt good, but like, that's where I am right now. And that's okay, And I don't know. I think about that often because I do think that the be.come project for someone like yourself could end up being a really interesting outlet into a different perspective of it, And I don't know that there is an answer for what we have to fix or what we have to do. I think we have to sit in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely, I did go on Devin's account and check it out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my own and try it because I think I want to. It's almost like the hardest part is getting dressed and like the hardest part is starting. I never regret when I'm in it. It's always starting. It's always getting to the point of like, okay, that's what I found is always the hardest part.
Right. Well, you don't need workout clothes to do it. So you don't have to go put on like spandex. Like, it's like very much like you could do it in your underwear kind of workout.
Cool.
So I think that part. And then I also tell people, like, what would it feel like, not necessarily to be like, now I have to go do a big workout, but rather now I'm shit. I think the less we can pressure ourselves, the better. And the more, like, I love to think about movement spaces like, this is my time. No one else gets to interrupt it. And I can sit and do nothing, or I can like move around and do everything. But both of those things are valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It was so great to speak to you and to meet you. And I'm really excited to share this conversation with people because I think it's going to be incredibly helpful for so many. And thank you for all that you're doing for this. It's super inspiring, and all your honesty with everything. Like, it's really, really awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And likewise, I loved getting to talk to you today, and, to do this and be here and like get to have real conversations with people. It's great.
Yeah.
And stay safe and stay sane. And hopefully we'll get to meet up in New York.
Sure. Tell Nico I say hi.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Well, yes, stay safe, stay sane. That's true. And thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. You probably should follow us at I'm Over It Podcast, or me at Atlanta Bean. And honestly, while you're at it, you may as well sign up for our newsletter, where you will get lots of exclusive content. So definitely do that. Also, send me DMs. I would love to connect with you over this period, because we all need as much support as we can get.